Frank Sheeran. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, you said it right.
What's up, guys, and welcome to One Take. I'm Gil, and today I'll be giving my spoiler-free review for Scorsese's latest film, The Irishman. The Irishman was one of the movies I was most looking forward to in 2019. I've been a Scorsese fan since sometime in the early 2000s when I finally saw Goodfellas, though I was probably still too young to be watching that movie. I became such a fan that in high school, I held a Goodfellas screening for my birthday in the movie theater I worked at. At the time, Goodfellas probably appealed to me largely through its endlessly entertaining characters, most notably Joe Pesci's unpredictable and trigger-tempered Tommy DeVito. Then, of course, there was the violence. I recall some unsuspecting friends at my 17th birthday party staring in shock as the film opened on a man suffering many stab and gunshot wounds. Finally, the thing that brought it all together was the epic scope. By the time the movie finishes, you feel like you've been on a decades-long journey with these characters. In 2006, Scorsese revisited the gangster genre with The Departed. After a 13-year departure, no pun intended, we learned that Scorsese was finally returning to the genre with The Irishman. The more I learned about this movie, the more hyped I got. With the casting of Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and the long-absent Joe Pesci, I knew we'd have those great characters again. With the use of de-aging technology allowing these actors to portray those characters across decades, I knew the epic scope would be there too. All the ingredients were there for a true spiritual successor to Goodfellas. Yesterday, I finally saw the movie, all 200 minutes of it, and I'm happy to report that this is one of those rare occasions where hype and reality met on friendly terms. The movie was incredible. The film focuses on Frank Sheeran, portrayed by De Niro, and his journey working as a hitman for Russell, Joe Pesci's character, head of the Buffalino crime family. Most notably in this journey, we see Frank's involvement with Al Pacino's Jimmy Hoffa, who was head of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Union from 1957 to 1971. As the movie begins, we see an elderly Frank Sheeran telling us his life story. This framing device immediately makes it clear that for this film, Scorsese is adding an ingredient to his gangster epic recipe: deep introspection. The gangster antics we've come to expect, including the hilarious yet uncomfortably tense character interactions and over-the-top violence, are all on display. However, they are consistently undercut by Scorsese forcing us to confront the deep consequences of a criminal life. At times, this is done in intentionally unsubtle ways. For example, a character will be introduced loudly to their own fanfare only for the film to pause for a moment so on-screen text can tell us exactly how that character will one day be killed, typically in extremely violent ways. However, where the film truly forces us to confront reality is through the eyes of children. Frank's children do not have many lines in this film. However, words are unnecessary for us to understand the tragedy of a daughter who is afraid of her own father, or of a child forced to witness a violent assassination. These themes of morality and consequences are present throughout the film, and they may seem at odds with how much of the movie relishes in Goodfellas-style criminal escapades. At times, it's easy to forget the tragedy of The Irishman and instead get lost in watching De Niro navigate his way up the ranks of the Buffalino crime family. However, this journey and some degree of romanticism is necessary for the deeper themes to work, meaning without the criminal thrill ride, we wouldn't understand what continues to draw Frank and others deeper into this world. Throughout the decades-long journey of this film, I continually asked myself, why? As Frank alienates himself from his children and erases any possibility of a happy life, I asked myself, why is he doing this? At times, the film confronts this question directly, and unsurprisingly does not give us a direct answer, though it certainly gives us shades of one. There are scenes where Frank encounters high-ranking mobsters. In these sequences, Scorsese successfully communicates the stature these men hold, and we immediately understand Frank's desire to please them or earn their respect. As he does, there is a sense of accomplishment, and with it, Frank's road to hell is paved further. It's impossible to review this movie without praising the performances of its three main players, De Niro, Pesci, and Pacino. All three of them entered this film burdened by decades of audience expectations. It's nearly impossible to imagine that we could watch these actors play mobsters in a Scorsese film and forget we are watching them. In lesser hands, it could have felt like The Avengers for mobsters, where the main appeal is seeing these beloved, established characters interact. However, in The Irishman, these actors disappeared into their roles. Most notably, Joe Pesci plays firmly against what audiences have grown to expect from him. In place of the short-tempered minefield we're used to, is a deliberate man, tinged by the same tragedy all of the characters are forced to wrestle with here. Ironically, Pesci is often the one in this film having to confront and deal with the erratic characters that get out of line. Based on my description, it might sound like The Irishman is a dour, challenging movie to watch. However, that is not the case at all. The tragic themes I'm focusing on here start at the periphery of this movie and grow like a slow boil. For much of the running time, we are free to enjoy the humor and suspense present in the story. Also, although Pesci and De Niro are fairly muted in their performances, Pacino is often loud and bombastic. Jimmy Hoffa, a historical figure known for being charismatic, gives Pacino an opportunity to go all out in his performance. I often found myself in fits of laughter while watching this movie, and many of those laughs came from Jimmy Hoffa's antics. The only bad thing I can say about The Irishman is that at 3.5 hours long, there were a few moments where I felt the length of it. For the first half, every scene felt like a necessary component of showing us Frank Sheeran's journey. However, as it went on, it did start to feel a little repetitive. Fortunately, that feeling didn't last once we propelled into the film's climax, and ultimately I found it to be a worthwhile journey. You might notice that I haven't discussed the de-aging technology at all. Honestly, that's because it worked so well, I completely forgot about it a few minutes into the movie. I was slightly worried about it going in, based on a couple of shots from the trailer, but I'm happy to say that in context, any flaws in the effect were not noticeable among everything else that worked so well in this film. If I had to sum it all up and set expectations for Scorsese fans expecting another Goodfellas, I'd say that just about all the ingredients are there. However, where a typical gangster movie would climax with a bloodbath, The Irishman keeps going and is more interested in what happens after the bloodbath. Further, although The Irishman does revel in its characters' journeys, this is only done so we can understand the allure that draws them in. And it doesn't stop Scorsese from consistently asking why or what's it all for. The Irishman is a fun movie, a sad movie, and ultimately a rewarding movie. It truly is an achievement which joins the ranks of Goodfellas as a classic of the genre. Enough from me, though. If you haven't seen The Irishman yet, are you more or less excited for it after hearing this review? Will you be looking for one of the few theaters screening it, or will you be waiting for Netflix at the end of the month? And if you have seen it, Do you agree with my review, or am I off the mark somewhere? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, and hit the little bell icon to make sure you get notifications whenever we release more videos like this one. Thanks for watching.
You did the right thing. You got rewarded.
A friend of ours is having a little trouble.